Here is something that should genuinely bother you. A Gallup poll dropped on April 30th of this year, and what it found is worse than anything recorded during COVID. Worse than 2008. Worse than any financial crisis in the last 25 years. 55% of Americans say their financial situation is getting worse. Not staying the same, not could be better, getting worse. Not staying the same, not could be better, getting worse. Not staying the same, not could be better, getting worse. And the thing that gets me about that number, the part most news coverage skips right past, is that this is the 5th year in a row that more Americans said things are getting worse, not better. And the thing that gets me about that number, the part most news coverage skips right past, is that this is the 5th year in a row that more Americans said things are getting worse, not better. 5 years straight. 5 years straight. Now, if you ask the average financial expert why that is, they will tell you the same thing they always say. People are spending too much. Too many lattes, too much lifestyle inflation, not enough discipline. That answer is wrong, and that belief, if you hold it, is actively costing you money. My name is Victor, and in this video, I am going to show you the 3 real forces draining American finances right now that most people never see, and what the people who are pulling ahead are actually doing about it. 3 things. Pay attention to all of them, because the third one is where most people leave the most money on the table. Let me be direct about something. The "you just need to budget better" conversation is not wrong because budgeting is bad advice. Budgeting is useful. The conversation is wrong because it misidentifies the problem. When a record 55% of Americans are struggling simultaneously, people with different incomes, different cities, different spending habits, you are not looking at a personal discipline problem. You are looking at a system problem. Think about it this way. If one person's boat is sinking, maybe they have a hole in the hull. If half the boats on the water are sinking at once, the water level changes. The water level changed. And I want to show you exactly how, with actual numbers. And I want to show you exactly how, with actual numbers, not general claims, not vibes. Data. The story has 3 parts. First, wages are lying to you. Even when they go up, you are not actually getting ahead. Second, the specific things you cannot cut: your rent, your insurance, your food, those have inflated in a way that is completely separate from the general inflation number you hear about on the news. And third, there is a widening divide between people who own assets and people who don't, and that divide is accelerating faster right now than at almost any point in modern history. If you understand all 3, you will understand your financial situation in a way that most people, including a lot of people who call themselves financially literate, simply don't. Start with wages, because this is where the confusion begins. At some point in the last few years, you probably got a raise. Maybe a few of them. And if you went by the headline number 3%, 4%, or even 5%, that sounds decent. Normal, even. Here is what they do not show you alongside that number. In 2024, national wages grew about 1.3% when you account for the actual distribution across income brackets. The Consumer Price Index, the official measure of inflation, came in at 2.9% that same year. As of April 2026, CPI is running at 3.8% year over year. Still well above the Federal Reserve's 2% target. So if your raise matched the national average, you lost ground. In real terms, what your money can actually buy you has taken a pay cut. This is not a new problem, but it has been compounding. And the Brookings Institution released a report this month, May 2026, making the point explicitly: Americans are not just on the financial edge because of inflation. Wages are falling behind too. Here is a number I want you to sit with for a second. In 2024, 45.5% of U.S. households did not earn enough to cover their necessities. Not luxuries, not luxuries, necessities. Rent, food, transportation, and healthcare. The stuff you have to pay. Nearly half of American households. And the response to that in mainstream financial conversation is still largely, make a budget and cut your subscriptions. It is remarkable, honestly. The mismatch between what the data says and what the conversation stays focused on is one of the stranger things I have run into covering this topic. Now, the raised question gets more complicated. Because wages have gone up for some people. Higher income earners saw their pay rise about 6% in April 2026 compared to the same time last year. But lower income earners, 1.5%. Same year. Completely different reality. That split matters because it means the wages are up headline is technically true while being practically meaningless for the majority of the people reading it. That split matters because it means the wages are up headline is technically true while being practically meaningless for the majority of the people reading it. You are not losing because you are bad with money. You are losing because the scoreboard has been keeping score differently than you thought. Okay? So wages are not keeping up with inflation in general. That is one layer. But there is a second layer underneath it, and this one is nastier because it targets things you genuinely cannot reduce. When people talk about inflation, they usually talk about the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, and right now that number is 3.8%. Not great, but people can picture 3.8%. They think, I can manage 3.8%. The problem is that the CPI is an average across hundreds of different categories, and the things that have inflated the fastest are the things you have no ability to just stop buying. Take healthcare. Employee premiums for family health insurance have gone up 23% over the last 5 years. The average family now pays close to $6,900 a year just in premiums before any deductibles, any co-pays, any prescriptions. That is money out of your check before you touch it. That is money out of your check before you touch it. Take housing. Rent and home prices have increased far faster than wages over the last decade. The math on homeownership has broken down for a huge portion of working Americans in most major cities. The monthly cost of buying a home is now higher than the average person's rent, and rents themselves have spiked significantly since 2020. Take gas. Surging fuel prices since the start of the Iran conflict in February have pushed transportation costs up sharply. Natural gas prices have risen more than twice as fast as wages in the past year. Take food. We are seeing food insecurity in the U.S. at levels not recorded since 2020, in the middle of the pandemic. Now stack all of that together. Healthcare up. Housing up. Gas up. Food up. These are not optional categories. You cannot decide to skip healthcare because it has gotten expensive. You cannot decide not to commute. You cannot eat less to compensate for grocery prices. This is what I mean when I say the just budget better conversation misunderstands the problem. The cuts people are told to make, the streaming services, the dining out, the coffee, those are real places money goes. But they are rounding errors against a 23% rise in your insurance premiums or a $400 increase in your monthly rent. When your fixed mandatory costs go up faster than your income, the math stops working. No budget fixes math that does not work. And here is the part that really sticks with me about this. 31% of Americans, when asked to name their single biggest financial problem right now, said the cost of living. That was the top answer. And separately, 76% said that affordability is a major concern. This is not a niche. This is not a subgroup. Three-quarters of the country is describing the same experience. The third mechanism is the one people talk about least, probably because it is the most uncomfortable. There are two kinds of people in the American economy right now: people who own assets and people who don't. That has always been true to some degree, but the gap between those two groups is widening right now at a speed that is genuinely unusual, and the conditions driving it are not slowing down. Here is what I mean. If you own a home, your net worth has increased significantly over the last several years, even without doing anything, because home values have gone up. If you own stocks, even through a basic 401k, you have benefited from market returns. If you own a business, even a small one, you have an asset that can grow independent of your salary. If you do not own any of those things, your wealth is almost entirely dependent on your income. And your income, as we just walked through, is losing to inflation. This is why the standard advice, just invest more, just save more, lands differently depending on where you start. If you are already stretched covering rent, health care, and groceries, the idea of investing an extra $500 a month is not bad advice in theory. It just isn't available in practice. But here is where it gets more complicated than just rich versus poor. This split is now happening in the middle class too. People with similar incomes are diverging rapidly based almost entirely on whether they own assets or not. Two households, same neighborhood, same income. One bought a home 5 years ago. The other has been renting. Those two families are living in the same economy on paper and completely different economies in reality. And Gallup's data reflects this. 28% of Americans surveyed this year are worried about making the minimum payment on their credit cards. That number is up 11 percentage points since 2021. Not $11, not $11. 11 percentage points. That is a massive shift in a short period of time. That is a massive shift in a short period of time. When people are worried about minimum payments, they are not building anything. They are surviving. They are surviving. And every month spent surviving is a month the asset owners are pulling further ahead. I want to be honest. There is no quick fix being buried in this video that reverses all of this overnight. I want to be honest, there is no quick fix being buried in this video that reverses all of this overnight. Anyone telling you that is selling something. What there is, and what actually works, is understanding exactly where the leverage points are. What there is and what actually works is understanding exactly where the leverage points are, which we are getting to right now. So I have been looking at this closely for a while. The people who are genuinely making progress financially in 2026 share a few specific characteristics, and none of them are what you would expect from the typical frugality wins financial content. And none of them are what you would expect from the typical frugality wins financial content. First, they understand that income from a job is a single point of failure. This does not mean they have all quit their jobs and started businesses. Most of them have not. What it means is that they treat their salary as the foundation, not the ceiling. They are actively building at least one other income stream, even a small one: a rental unit, dividend income from a portfolio, freelance work in their field, or a digital product. Something. The reason this matters right now specifically is the job market data. Anxiety about job loss is at a 20-year high. AI disruption is real, and it is hitting white-collar workers, not just factory workers. The people who are least scared right now are the ones who know their income doesn't collapse if one employer makes a decision. Second, they own something that grows without them working more hours. This is what separates treading water from actually moving. Every extra dollar going into an asset, a retirement account, an index fund, or a property is a dollar working when you are not. Every dollar sitting in a savings account is slowly losing value to inflation. Every dollar in credit card debt is actively costing you. The people getting ahead are fanatical about this transition. Move money from expenses and savings into assets as fast as consistently as possible, in whatever amount is available. Third, they have stopped trying to optimize their spending and started trying to optimize their income. There is a ceiling on how much you can cut. There is no ceiling on what you can earn. The people who are building financial momentum are not going through their subscriptions looking for $15 to save. They are asking what they could charge for a skill they already have, what problem they could solve that someone would pay for, and what asset they could acquire that generates cash flow. This is a fundamentally different question, and it produces fundamentally different results. None of this requires starting rich. It requires starting deliberately. 3 concrete moves. Not general advice. Actual steps. Move 1. Calculate your real wage, not your nominal wage. Take your annual salary. Now go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics CPI calculator and adjust it for inflation over the last 3 years. Find out what your salary from 3 years ago would be worth in today's dollars, then compare it to what you actually make today. Most people who do this discover they have taken a real pay cut even if their nominal salary went up. That number, the gap between your real wage and your nominal wage, is your target. That is the number your next raise or income increase needs to beat, not just match. If you do not know your real wage, you are navigating blind. Move 2. Audit your essential costs, not your discretionary spending. Forget the coffee. Look at the 3 highest fixed costs in your life right now: housing, healthcare, and transportation. For each one, ask one question: is there a structural change I could make that would reduce this permanently? Not a temporary cut. A structural one. Moving somewhere with lower rent. Getting on a partner's health plan. Switching to a vehicle with lower insurance and fuel costs. These are hard decisions, but a $300 reduction in your monthly fixed costs is worth more, compounded over years, than eliminating every coffee purchase you ever make. Fix the structure. The discretionary spending is a distraction from the structure. Move 3. Start one income layer in the next 30 days. It does not matter if it is small, not in 6 months when you have more time, not after you pay off the credit card. Now, the reason timing matters is psychological, not financial. Every month you delay, the inertia grows. The people who build secondary income streams are not the people who waited until everything was perfect. They are the people who started with something uncomfortable and small and let it grow. What skill do you have that someone would pay for? What do people ask your advice on? What problem do you understand well enough to solve for someone else? Start there. Keep it simple. The goal in month 1 is not revenue. The goal is to break the mental barrier of having one income source. That shift in identity from "I have a job" to "I have multiple income streams, one of which is my job," is worth more than any single financial tip I could give you. Here is what I want you to take from this. The 55% of Americans who told Gallup their finances are getting worse are not making it up, and they are not all making bad decisions. They are dealing with a wage-price gap that has been compressing their real purchasing power for years. They are dealing with essential costs that have outrun their income in categories they literally cannot opt out of. And they are watching the gap between asset owners and everyone else widen in a way that is hard to even see clearly from the inside. This is not a reason to feel hopeless. It is a reason to stop trying to solve a systems problem with personal discipline tips. You now understand something that most people around you do not. The question is what you do with it. Calculate your real wage, fix your structure before your discretionary spending, start one income layer this month, And if you want to understand the other half of this picture, specifically what the data says about job security right now and what the people who are recession-proofing their income are actually doing, that is the next video. I would watch it before you feel like you have time. Subscribe if this kind of analysis is useful to you. There is a lot more of this coming.